how do I become someone who can, or for me and my husband at least, like how can I become someone who makes this more known? You know what I mean?
Mm,
Understand what these different families need. You know,
yeah.
we were lucky that my mom works with special needs kids, and
Yes.
we just happen to end up with great doctors, and we happen to end up with great people through CDS, and we have, you know, like all these
Yes.
things worked out for us to get him diagnosed so young. But it's
Right.
like, you know, that doesn't happen for everyone.
Hi, guys. I'm your host, Megan Van Dievender, and this is the Empowerhood Podcast. I'm so happy to have you here. You know, motherhood is hard, and we are going to talk about all of the hard things that just are not talked about enough. So, buckle up and enjoy this episode.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm so happy you're here because I just like there's so much meaning in just like telling your story. And like I met you, Christa, when you were really just beginning, you know, your motherhood journey. I can't remember how old Jackson was, but you were about to have your second child. And you know, just where I was at, I had just been married. I didn't have any children. So like now looking back, I feel like I admired you so much, like just like how you did everything with ease, with fun and humor. But like at the time when I didn't have any kids, you know, I just didn't even think anything of it. So it's just, I can't wait to hear about everything. So everyone out there listening today, we have Christa Silva here today, and she's going to share her motherhood journey. So start with a little bit about you, Christa. Who is Christa?
Okay. Um, I am, you know, I'm really okay with saying first and foremost, I'm a mom. It's really the biggest job I have. Um, it's certainly what has changed the way I look at the world, the way I interact with people. Um, so I'm like really comfortable with saying I'm a mom. And, you know, I think so many times women, we can be so insecure about things. And so, like, saying you're really good at something, you know, you're like, oh, well, that's braggy, or I don't mean that, or whatever. But I love the fact that, like, I can be like, yeah, I'm a good mom. Like, I did that. I do that. It's continuing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I
I
think,
love that you can say that so
yeah,
freely. Like, I think that's
I,
incredible.
I can say it. I can say it and totally own it and great with it. Now, everything else in my life, not so much, I'm sure. Okay. Like, you know, I like everyone else, I think we have our things. I am a wife to a very caring, understanding um, man who keeps me on my toes as well. We've been together for 14 years. I have two boys, Jackson, who has severe autism and is considered nonverbal. And then I also have my son, Teddy, who he has ADHD and some other learning disabilities and things like that. So it's been really cool to have, you know, this crazy life and things like that. But I mean, all your kids do, like moms are always like, they're so different. My kids are so different, you know,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
also like perfect for each other. So
That's
yeah,
amazing. Yeah. So start from the beginning. So Jackson is your first child?
Jackson is my first.
Okay.
Um, and so we had Jackson, nothing, nothing crazy, you know, regular natural birth, not because I was a hero, but because that's just the way it happened. Um, so, you know, it was, you know, whatever. I was doing all the perfect things that you're supposed to do and following all the steps and being neurotic and crazy like most of us are. And, you know, it was probably about, you know, Jackson just wasn't hitting markers. So, like, he
Okay.
wasn't sitting up, he wasn't crawling. Um, he wasn't making a ton of eye contact, but Megan, you kind of know me. We're kind of a loud and crazy family. So like when I would come in the room and like do a song or dance or something and stuff, he would like, you know, spot me, you know, and get on with that. And so I didn't, he's my first. So I'd never been a mother before.
Yeah.
I did not know that we had anything to worry about.
Yeah.
And it was actually my mom had come to the house to visit, and they live in North Carolina and they have a house here in Maine. And my mom had come to visit. She hadn't been here for like probably 2 months. She goes, Krista, I don't think he can hear. And, I think she had been holding off saying that because like what mom wants to hear, my child's not perfect.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
there's stigma too, to be like, I don't want to bring that up. I don't want to talk about this. I don't want that. So even like my mom, who we talk about everything way too much to each other. So my mom was like, I can tell that she was nervous about saying that.
Yeah.
But, she's, you listen to your mom, right? Still, so it's like, okay, I'll go take him to a specialist, a hearing test.
Yeah.
And so we go to this hearing test, and the ear, nose, and throat doctor, he was amazing. And he's like, there's a lot of buildup in his ear canal, and he can't hear.
So he couldn't hear.
He could not hear. So they did a test. I mean, like when they're first born, they put that ear thing and they're like, oh, that he's not deaf. He can hear.
Okay.
But the ear, nose, and throat specialist, he, did another test, like I said, as he was a little older. And he said, I think he can't hear because he just has so much buildup in his ear. He's like, but he won't let me touch him to get in there.
Okay.
And so like, no kid likes their ear looked at, but like my child, you could not do that. Like that was like now looking back, like that was like nails on his body. That was not something that could happen.
Yes.
And so this doctor, who was awesome, and again, was not saying things that I think he already thought, but was like, we're going to go in, we're going to put him under. I'm going to see if he needs tubes. I'm going to clean everything out. We're going to see how it goes. Okay. So we do this whole thing. They test him again, 3 months later, and he's like, Krista, he can hear now. He can hear.
Okay.
And so he's like, I think you should get him into speech therapy. And so I'm like, great. Like he's behind because he couldn't hear. Now he's going to hear and be able to talk. Like it's going to start happening. It's all going to start happening. And so we go to speech therapy, and he has his eval, and speech says, I think he needs a PT eval.
Okay.
And we go and we do that. And PT says, I think he needs an OT eval. Huh. You know what I mean? Like, so it's like and at this point, Jackson's only 18 months.
Okay. I was going to ask you how old he was. Okay. So 18 months.
Very young at this point. He's only 18 months. But again, he's not sitting up. He's still, he's kind of, at 18 months, he's sitting up. He's not crawling a lot. He's not walking. He's not mimicking any sounds. Okay. Like none.
Yeah.
And so, but again, he's my first. Right. I don't know anymore.
Right.
Do you know what I mean?
Right.
Just like, my kid's super chill. Like he just hang out. Awesome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not thinking, you just don't know. I had nothing to go off. Nothing to go off.
Yeah.
And so, like those things are now in place. And so then our pediatrician was like, we're going to get child development services involved just to do an evaluation as well.
Okay.
So that's at that age, they come in the house, they do the evaluation right there. And they say to me, we are saying he has developmental delays, and we want to set him up with services.
Okay.
And so at that point, it's not like, it's like he's delayed. Do you know what I mean? No one's saying anything, this is what he's so young. You know what I mean? Like, so no one, this is what's happening. This is what it is. This is whatever. No one's saying any of those things.
Yeah.
And still, I'm kind of like, okay, like I'm not really, there's never like a punch of like, oh no, like something's wrong or whatever.
Yeah.
At this. Right. And, so then like fast forward to, we're having all these services. They come in the house, we do PT, speech, and OT all the time, like whatever. And working on he's starting to get some core strength. and he's starting to move around, and he's starting to make eye contact a little bit more with more people, not just me. He still only lets me snuggle him, like to rock him.
Okay.
Like not even Greg, my husband.
Wow.
I mean, he would let Greg hold him, obviously, but like to like lay down and like snuggle, like
Yeah.
no, like
Okay.
don't hold. Put me in something else to put me someplace else.
Okay.
And so it was like he at 2.5, you go in for, well, at least for Maine. I don't know if they do it how they do it all over the country, but for Maine, around 2.5, you go in and you have your first real psych eval.
Okay.
And so the woman who was actually working in our house at the time, who was like our in-home support through Child Development Services, before we went to that meeting, she said to me, I'm pretty sure he has autism. And I
Okay.
don't want you to go into this meeting and have that be, out of left field, because
Yeah.
no one's saying that to me. Like
Did
no
you
one was saying,
have that in the back of your mind, Krista, or no? You had no idea.
my mom was actually a special needs teacher's aide.
Okay.
So autism and stuff like that has always been something that we and other different developmental delays and things like that have always been kind of something I knew about, because
Right.
like my mom would be working at the elementary school, and I would like get out of my high school classes and like walk to her school before we'd drive home, whatever. And
Yeah.
I'd see her kids, or a few times I worked at the camp, like there was like summer camps that my mom did, for the extended school year is what they call it. And I always did, like I did that job,
Yeah.
working at and stuff. So like, again, still, I'm not feeling any like punch, and I'm like, am I supposed to?
Yeah.
Like, am I? But I'm like, is it just because he's my first, and like I don't like whatever? And so we go to this meeting. It's 2.5 hours long. It's terrible. What 2-year-old wants,
Oh
anyways?
my
Like,
God. Yeah.
I was not too. I don't. I mean, technically have autism, I guess. I think we all have a little touch of something, but
Right.
I'm like, I wanted to scream and get out of there.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
Yeah.
such a process, and it's so hard, and you need to go through it, but it's like, gosh, I wish we could figure out a way to do this better. But
Yeah.
anyways, so they take us into this small room, and they're like, he has severe autism. And I think it's when they labeled it like that to me
Yeah.
that I was like, here it is. You know what I mean? Like, that's when I'm
punch.
like,
Well,
the punch.
I just don't understand
What-
how it hasn't come up, but then they're labeling him as severe autism, but no one has said anything about autism to you before.
So see, looking at it like that,
Yeah.
same, but now, I went back to school and I kind of know a little bit more
Yes.
about that. So it's really, it's that psych eval that is what gives you the diagnosis. And
Okay.
so once you have that, really no one can say anything other than, he's delayed, we're doing this, we're
Okay.
working on this.
Okay.
It's,
I understand.
but no
Okay.
really say, and I mean, I think even the woman who worked with Jackson first, she was amazing, and I'm not necessarily sure she was even supposed to do that technically,
Right.
but
Right.
she's worked with kids forever
Yeah.
on the spectrum and things like that, and it was like she didn't want me to go in blindsided,
Yeah.
and I'm so thankful for that,
Yeah.
because that would have been harder.
Right. Right.
So anyways, that happens, and it's like your world kind of changes from like, what do I do now? So like how do I become someone who can, or for me and my husband at least, like how can I become someone who makes this more known? You know what I mean? Understand what these different families need.
Yeah.
We were lucky that my mom works with special needs kids, and
Yes.
we just happen to end up with great doctors, and we happen to end up with great people through CDS, and we have, like all
Yeah.
these things worked out for us to get him diagnosed so young. But it's
Right.
like, that doesn't happen for everyone.
Right.
We're very fortunate that that happened for him.
What is the typical age of diagnosis for autism?
You know, it, the thing about autism being a spectrum is, my goodness, it is such a spectrum.
Right.
I think it has a lot to do with when delays, I think, show up in an individual,
Okay.
because different things you may not notice too. If someone
Right.
has, something that goes with autism can be, sensory,
Yeah.
sensory is a huge thing for people with autism. And, maybe that sensory doesn't really show itself to an adult that can help support a child through that until
Yeah.
like 7 or 8,
Okay.
and you like, oh, that kid's a picky eater. Well, no, the feel of a banana in his mouth is making him physically want to gag. Like, it's
Yeah.
not like, so it's I think it's so it just ranges
Okay.
so much. But like I said, Jackson was diagnosed at 2.5. I think that's the youngest they'll put a label
Okay.
on
Okay.
a child with that kind of diagnosis.
Right. Right. So what happened from there? Like, did your whole entire life change, or like did you feel more equipped to be able to provide him with what he needed, or like what went down?
Yeah, so you know what? I remember coming home, and I remember saying to Greg, like I just said, we need to do something. Like, I feel like this is something that we need to do something about. And that's actually where we decided to do the fundraiser that we had done for
Yes.
a handful of years. We actually, after COVID, it actually didn't happen, and then it didn't come back to fruition. But Greg and I are still really active in spreading
Yeah.
different words to people. But
So this is Light It Up Blue, right?
this is Light It Up Blue.
Okay.
So at the time, my husband was working for the York Harbor Inn,
Yes.
and we were actually innkeepers there.
Yes.
And so that's a cool situation. And Greg went to his, the owners of the York Harbor Inn, and kind of said what had just happened to us,
Yeah.
and that we really wanted to raise awareness. We
Yeah.
really thought that it was something important. And we had about a month from the first Light It Up Blue. We had about a month from the time we talked to the owners and for like, yeah, do it, until it went off.
Okay.
And that was crazy because, wow. Okay.
Well, yeah, and there's a lot of people. I mean, I remember the first one I went to. It was so fun.
It was wild. So, my husband Greg, is so charismatic. He cares about people. He's one of those people that you talk to and he listens and you're like, oh, you actually care. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
there are so many people in that community that just love Greg, which is terrible when you want to like be like, oh, my husband, and they're like, everybody loves Greg. Whatever. But
He is really great. He is.
yeah, everybody loves Greg. So anyways, he randomly, him and at the time, another guy who was working with Greg, his name's Paul. He was the concierge there.
Okay.
And they just randomly started calling up some of the companies, and they were like, we're gonna be doing this fundraiser. We'd like some some things we can either raffle off or do silent auction. We want to do a little bit of both. And we're thinking we're not going to get, it's in a month.
Right.
I'm like, a few things, that's amazing. Because of the contact from the hotel, Greg knows a DJ and all these people. And then one of the women who does cakes all the time, she's like, well, I'm going to donate all the desserts, and I'm going to make this cake. And this other company hears about it, and he does like animal balloons, and he's like, I want to come, and I want to be a part of this, and I'll make balloon animals for the kids. And the whole staff is like, we want to donate all our time, we want to work the event, all this stuff. And it was just like crazy.
It's amazing. Yeah.
A room that we thought was going to be filled with, maybe like thinking like super over, like maybe 100 people.
Yeah.
We were like over 300. And Greg kept being like, man, I really hope the fire department doesn't show up.
Yeah.
Like,
I remember it being so packed you couldn't even move.
I think we're like over the limit here.
Yeah.
And, it just showed like, we both worked in York, Maine together. Yeah. That community, it was just amazing how they were like, oh, this couple in our community, they just got this curveball thrown. They know of Greg, they know of our family because Greg talks about us all the time, whatever. And they're like, yeah, we're all going to go. And it was an awesome time.
Yeah.
It was a blast. We raised 10 grand that night.
Wow. Amazing. And now that money, you sent it to different charities to help kids with autism, or?
So every each year that we had done the Light It Up Blue event, we would choose different charities. So sometimes it was the Fraser Ford Development Center up in Sanford, Maine. Okay. Sometimes also the Autism Alliance of Maine. There was a few different, so it was all local. It was all local charities of Maine that we gave to.
Yes.
The third year we did it, and so that's how we did it every year. So it was always like a different charity or a different group. The Fraser Ford Development Center, they were building a brand new autism wing, and so one year I think the second year, like all of whatever we fundraised went to them, because we were helping them get that whole wing done and stuff like that, and we wanted to be a part of that. And so the third year, though, we had just lost our dog.
Yes.
So we had a dog, and again, Jackson is just starting to his world was always right here. Yeah. And so 3 years from then, his world's starting to get a little bit more out. Like it's starting, you can see it gradually open up.
Okay.
So Greg and I had a dog before we had kids. So, whatever. And unfortunately we had to put our dog down.
Yeah.
And now I'm not thinking, Jackson's not overly affectionate with this dog. He's not, whatever. This dog is super protective of Jackson.
Okay.
Laid near him all the time, whatever. But we didn't really know that there was it was going to be upsetting for him to lose his dog.
Okay.
And so we had to put the dog down. Terrible. And Jackson had just started having foam letters in the bath. Okay. And he to put things in order. And so that was great that he was putting the alphabet in order, along the line of, how on the back.
Yeah, I remember those.
Needs them all in a line, and he's putting them all in a line.
Yep.
And so Jackson is not talking at this point.
Okay.
He's not really talking. He's mimicking sounds, not talking.
Okay.
He can spell like crazy.
Okay.
And we all thought this, but he never showed it really well because he doesn't have the OT to be able to write it out and stuff like that. So he takes the foam letters 3 nights after and writes dog. Oh. And we're like, what? Do you know what I mean?
Is this the first time he's ever spelled?
Word. Wow. Writes a word with foam letters, dog. And so I'm like, okay, losing it. So I go to school and tell them that. And they're like, oh, blah, blah, blah. They're doing picture. It's called picture exchange. It's like a PEX board, whatever. And so it's pictures of things to create. And so one of the things that they're doing is for him to ask things. It's like, can cracker. So it's like, can I have a cracker? But it's just can cracker, can hug, can, whatever.
Okay.
And it's just pictures. It's not spelling out words. It's just pictures.
Yeah.
The second night, he comes in, and we're in the bath again, and he has them all in a row, but then he takes them apart and he writes can dog.
Oh my goodness.
And at this point, I'm saying like once we put the dog down, like, Greg, I'm never doing that again. It's terrible.
Right.
I'm in love, and we have to. It's a family member. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And he did that, and I was like, well, fine, okay. The first thing he ever writes to me, my non-verbal,
I know. Oh my God.
child, like, so I guess that's happening. But I say to Greg, like, I want to look into a service dog.
Yeah.
Like I want to look into. And so year 3, his staff hears that we're doing this, and we had done like a blurb, like, that we had shared that family had been donating to, fundraise for Jackson's service dog and whatever. Mm-hmm. They are like, no, this year we're raising the money for the service dog. And I'm like, no, like, that made me, so I was like, okay, well, if, and they were very adamant, and I was like, okay, we'll do half. Like, we'll do half. I can't do that. But like half of that, whatever. And so, a huge chunk of us being able to have Jackson's service dog Poppy is from one of those fundraisers. And it's like, it was just outstanding. But also, so like I said, we choose different fundraisers. We also had families locally that they could email us and write in and say something they need. So like people, some kids with autism really like a weighted blanket, things like that. And they're actually getting less expensive now because apparently all of us like them. But it was more of a therapy tool. Yes. And so they're quite expensive at first. And so, like back then, God, I feel so old. Anyways, but so, we helped a few kids get some weighted blankets. Yeah. Also random things that maybe everyone else wouldn't really think of, but like, my son has a regular, like, there's one type of water bottle he will have.
Yep.
A lot of these different kids, that's the sensory, and they need the same and stuff like that, but they like to chew too. So like one person, they just want a bunch of like the tops of their water bottles because they chew them. And it does become a ton of money, like people think like that's not, but like, if you're buying a 5-pack of these water bottle tops every 2 weeks,
that adds up.
Wow. Yeah. It all adds up.
Yeah.
So, that was really great. And that was really fun when we got to, because Greg and I would like take an afternoon and we would deliver those things. And that's really
amazing.
Cool. So yeah, that was really great.
And back to the service dog. So for Jackson, like, what changed after he got Poppy? Like, how did it help him?
So Poppy is amazing. And I think with service dogs in general, you're kind of like, is it going to work? Is it not going to work? Yeah. Whatever. Jackson can be very, very aggressive. Okay. And as he gets older, it's getting to be more of a situation for us. Yes. And it can be really tough. Poppy, she's a white lab. She's just a doll. Autism therapy dogs are kind of trained the same as like a PTSD dog. They get the same training. So like if you're at my house and you're having a panic attack, my dog is going to sit on you.
Okay.
Like hell, like smell it. Like, I don't know what it is, but like you're having a panic attack, dog is on you.
Wow.
So first thing. So like Poppy tries to give Jackson deep pressure. And sometimes if it's at the beginning of his, of him being upset, that'll work and will help him.
Okay.
She'll also just start licking his hands. And it's like she's distracting him. Okay. So like he'll start stimming something and she'll just start licking his hands. And it's like, oh, Poppy, like, what are you doing? Like, what's going on? Like whatever. And so that's something else that she does that's amazing. She also can seek and find because Jackson will elope. So our house is like Fort Knox And you would think it's because I'm so scared of like someone coming in. And I'm like, no, I don't want anyone to get out.
Okay.
Like all these lights are always on. We have chains on all the door. I mean, it's like crazy. You're
Okay.
like being like, Christa, are you okay? You live in like small town Maine. Like,
So he
like,
walks out of the house and just
he
wanders?
has left the house before.
Okay, so
like,
she'll find him or stay with him.
So you can say, like, you know, do the command, find Jackson, and she'll start.
Wow. How incredible is that?
Yeah, and the training for that, they came in and they like they took us into like a Walmart, you know, and like they have me with Poppy and they have Greg and the trainer and Jackson walk through Walmart. And then he's like, you know, then they call me on the cell phone and they're like, okay, you can give her the command now. And she follows his exact like
Wow.
track thing. It was wild.
Oh, I love dogs. They're so amazing.
Yeah.
So does Poppy stay with him in school and like at all times, or?
No, so that was something that I thought we were going to do, was to be like, okay, this can be a dog for him at school. It'll be helpful, blah, blah, blah. But like, Jackson has always gone to a school because he has such severe autism. He's always gone to a school where, you know, he's in a class of all other kids with autism.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about an autism service dog is that you can easily break the training,
Okay.
which, I mean, unfortunately, we have a little bit too, because they become your pet.
Yeah.
You know, like, because when she's off duty, she's off duty. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like, what, you know,
She's just a
becomes pet.
regular dog. Yeah.
It's like, I'm a dog. So anyways, it's like, you know, that can happen very easily. So if Poppy was to go with Jackson to school, Poppy still needs a trainer. Like, Poppy would still need, so someone would have to be commanding Poppy.
Okay.
Jackson is not in a place where
Right.
he can be the control of the dog.
Okay. Okay.
But also, you can't tell a classroom of kids with special needs, like, don't pet the dog, it's working.
Right.
You know,
Right.
like, you, like,
Right.
sorry, you know, like, not listening to you.
Yeah. That's hard. I have a hard time not petting the service dogs.
Right?
They're
Yeah.
so cute. Yeah.
So it's like that whole thing, that didn't happen for us, but she's amazing. And like I said, Jackson can get very aggressive.
Okay.
And
She'll calm him down from that.
she'll try to, like I said, if she gets it at the beginning.
Okay.
If you're at the other end, we have to do other things.
Okay.
There's other things that happen. You know, whatever. And it depends on what's happening. You know, if he's stimulated from his iPad, then I have to try and remove the iPad, but that's what he wants too. So it's like,
yeah,
dance.
that's hard.
And, you know, a whole bunch of other things. But when he gets aggressive, if he goes at me, I'm very good at learning. Like, I learned how to do the different things that the teachers do at school. Because I'm like, what you're doing, show me. Show me so I can do it at home.
Right.
So, you know, I'll ignore the behavior in a safe way and things like that. And and so he knows he's not going to get a rise out of me. So like, he knows that I know how to like say that, like, he's not getting the rise out of me and it's not happening. So now he'll go straight for the dog. So he'll like try and pinch the dog, and like tried to bite the dog once. And I'm like, dude, it's still a dog.
Yeah.
But that dog, she doesn't even look at him.
Wow.
You know, like if you were to like grab a dog by the scruff or something, or do anything like that, I mean, the head's going to turn like, who's got me?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, what's going on?
Right.
If it's a perfectly never touched anybody dog, it's going to like do the whip, you know, of like,
you surprise them. Yeah.
She usually looks at me and is like, are you going to fix this? It's terrible. Like he needs to be helped. Like she's never even looked over at him to be aggressive back.
Wow.
That I let him do that. I obviously saved the dog. You know, I obviously let him, you know, pinch the dog or things like that. But when he gets by me and it happens, it's fine. You know?
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So your second child, so you had a second baby. How old was Jackson when you had a second child?
So they are 3.5 years apart.
Okay. Now, how did
Um,
that go? I mean, you had a second baby. You
so
had just recently gotten Jackson diagnosed, right? So,
yeah, so like I think first of all, I was very we had just had this happen, whatever. I was very like, I'm good. It's the three of us. I'm
okay.
good. We're the three musketeers. Cool, fine, perfect.
Yeah.
And my husband's like, no, I think eventually you'll. And I'm like, no, I'm good. I'm really, really good. Mostly I wanted him to get, you know, taken care of so I didn't have to worry about that anymore.
Right.
So
Right.
the big V word for him, which is why I'm pretty sure he was like, no, let's think about it some more, you know? I think we should think about it. So I mostly think he was just scared of that. But anyways, I was like, no, like it's whatever. And then, I was pregnant. And so it's like, okay, so now your thinking has to completely change. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it changes now. Um, and I think at some point we're going to talk about inclusion and stuff like
Yeah.
that. It brings up a good topic about ignorance in different people at this time too, because I can remember going to a event type place
Okay.
with different family and friends of family,
Mm-hmm.
and we were telling people that we were pregnant,
Yeah.
and like probably 2 months ago we were just like, Jackson has severe autism.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And they're like, oh no, like what? Like, oh no, you're pregnant? Did you know that before his diagnosis, before you got pregnant? And I'm like, I have to walk away.
Yeah.
I have to walk away.
Oh my
Like,
God.
who who says that? And it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I did. Yeah.
Wow.
Do you know what I mean?
Wow.
Like okay. Like that was probably the first time that I looked at someone that was within. It was not, this person is not a family, it's not a family member, it's not a close family friend now.
Yeah.
An older generation type thing,
Okay.
but
Right.
that was the first time that I was like, oh, this is not celebrated, because we had this, this happened. We made
Yeah.
the fundraiser was a huge success.
Right.
Everyone's, you guys are, like, that's so great. And we're going to spread this awareness and stuff. And that was the first time that someone said something. And I was like, wow, some people just really don't know.
Yeah. So you're saying that your second pregnancy was not celebrated with your family? Like it was.
Oh, no, it was with my family. It was with my family.
Okay.
It wasn't but I'm saying like that we were at this place and that was said to me, and it was like instantly like who wants to hear, like,
right.
what?
Right. Everything else had been so positive and so helpful and all right.
Okay, he has autism. Who gives a shit? We're gonna do
right. He's your child. You're gonna do everything in your power to help him.
We're gonna do it all, and we're gonna do it together. And Greg and I are, we're gonna help be as vocal as we can to help others. Thinking it's in a way of like, oh, we need to help others so that like they get the early intervention that was so huge for Jackson.
Right.
They taught him how to walk, how to eat. You know what I mean? I mean, at one point he only drank warm milk from a bottle, and like 2 different kinds of baby puree and like crushed up crackers. And this was at 4.5, 5.
Wow.
And then he just stopped eating all of that. And so it's like, okay, we're days away from like a feeding tube. Right. Do you know what I mean? Like, his whole school team, which I'll never forget and never be able to say thank you enough to, at Waban, which is now Waypoint, and his whole team. So we had his classroom teacher, his one-on-one aide, his speech therapist, his occupational therapist, and his PT, just because I think she wanted to be like another help in the room.
Yeah.
And she's like, we're literally for a week, them, like all of them and Jackson are in this room trying to get him to eat.
Wow.
And like nothing's working. And this child, you can't put a Band-Aid on him. You know, like he's not going to do a feeding tube. Like he's not going to do it.
Yes.
And so I remember walking into school and his whole team comes out and they're like, he ate a meatball. And I'm like, what? Like of all the things to like choose.
Right.
Be the first thing to eat, but he ate a meatball. And I mean, his whole team is in the hallway like
celebrating.
Believe it. You know, like, oh my, they taught my child to eat. You know what I mean? Like, oh, these services are so important.
Right.
And so it was just so important for us to be like, we need to keep talking about it. We need to keep talking about schools. We need to keep talking about early intervention. We need to keep talking about all these things because it's so helpful for so many, because like I didn't know, you know what I mean?
Right.
And like
well, that's why I wanted you to come on too, because I mean, like you're kind of proving my point right here. Like early, like knowing these things and being aware of them is going to be your best friend, right?
Yeah. And to like be like, get away from the stigma. Who cares?
Yes.
And even, you know, I think a lot of kids end up needing speech therapy right now.
Absolutely.
That doesn't mean anything if they need some speech therapy, but get it now before they have to go, you know, it's just, so that was something that we were like, that's what we wanted to push. And we had this like amazing wave of like just love and acceptance and things like that. And then that was like my first like stop sign.
Right.
You know,
like I need to step away. Yeah.
I need to understand even I need to understand this myself even more, you know, like get that.
Now, what happened after that? So, I mean, you were only a couple months pregnant, right? So after that, like so you went through your pregnancy, you had Teddy. What went on from there?
I again, it was just a normal pregnancy, normal birth, everything like that, whatever. We're still doing all the therapies with Jackson and you know, Teddy, I actually stayed home for almost a year because we had Jackson and Teddy's an infant. So I was like, I got to stay home. I was doing hair, you know, as you know, with you. And so we were like, that's what I had to I put all that on hold and became, you know, mom.
Yeah.
And so Teddy, I feel so like Teddy becomes like, I mean, he's just, how do you explain Teddy? But anyways, he's just his own little firecracker. Yeah. So Teddy has, like I said, ADHD. He's a whole different.
So the whole newborn stage, infant stage was completely different for you than with Jackson.
So Teddy is off the wall. Teddy has no fear. Teddy is moving around. Teddy is doing all these things. Okay. But I'm still the mom of a nonverbal son.
Yes.
And that's all I knew. And so now I have this new beautiful baby and we're doing all the things and whatever. And then he comes up to me one day and he's like, he has his milk like in his hands and he goes, and I'm like, did you just sign more?
Wait, because this was Teddy or Jackson?
Teddy. This is Teddy.
Okay.
So Teddy, who I'm not teaching sign yet because why? I'm like, you can't know that, right? Or you can't talk yet, right? You know, where I'm like, oh, I'm neglecting you. So, okay, that's one place where I felt like I wasn't the best mom maybe because I'm like, wait a minute. I have to totally change how I'm doing everything now. You know, like, oh, I can teach you things. You know, like, now.
Well, I think that was one of my questions. I'm like, how do you balance two children when their needs are so completely different?
Oh, I think every mother of any child ever, you do what you have to survive. Okay. So you know, that's what being a mom is, I think. You know,
I mean, yeah, for sure. But obviously Jackson's needs are very different.
Completely different. And that is so true. And for me, it was Teddy coming up to me and signing that he saw me sign to Jackson.
Yes.
And that's how he learned it. You know,
Yes.
like how he
Just
learned
little
that.
sponges.
You know what I
Yes.
mean? Like, and so I'm like, oh, okay. Like, now let's go. Okay. Like I gotta relearn how I'm a mom again.
Yeah.
And you know, for Teddy, he has ODD, but I think sometimes that diagnosis, I don't want to say grow out of it because I hate that term too, but he can cope with it better. But for ODD, that's really like, Teddy, don't touch that, it's hot. And it's like his little body's like, I need to touch it.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean? Like you just
Yeah.
told me no, and I really want to listen to you, but like my body can't. Like my body can't listen to you.
Okay.
So we had to learn how to talk different. So it wasn't like Teddy, no, don't do that. It was like, Teddy, we're gonna go to the swings. Do you know what I mean? Like,
because he couldn't stop himself.
Right. If I had said no way. We're gonna go to the swings. Awesome. That's where we're gonna.
Yeah.
Or even like, you know, as he got older, it was more so worded like, do you think that's safe? Yeah, it's not safe. Okay, let's go this way. Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like it had to be worded differently.
Yes.
You know, and so that was different too. So I have this child who has no fear and is just like gonna go a million miles an hour and wants to and is social and whatever. And then I have Jack who's like, no thanks. You know, like I'm not interested in that. And so it's like that was a balancing act. But I mean, our family needed Teddy. Our family needed Teddy. I tell him all the time we needed him. Like we needed him.
Yeah.
And, Teddy and Jackson at one point were both at Waban.
Okay.
So they were both going to school together because Teddy was also in a one-on-one classroom and things like that.
Okay.
And they were in different classrooms, you know, and stuff, ages and diagnosis and stuff like that, levels of ability and stuff. But Teddy would see his brother on the playground.
Yeah.
And make him play. Because Teddy doesn't hear, you don't tell me no that we don't play. I mean, like, that doesn't happen. And so, you know, the teachers are like, yeah, it's awesome. Teddy's like making Jackson like run around with the kids. Where Jackson at recess would like play with chalk, you know, by himself.
Yeah.
Or just like kind of walk around by himself.
And he would do it.
Who would do it?
Jackson would play with the other kids.
Oh, when Teddy made him do it.
Yeah, he would do it.
Like, he would do it. I mean, not forever. Like, he would, like, do it for, like, a second and be like, that was great. Bye. You know, like, whatever.
But that's a start, though, right?
Amazing. But it's what opened up Jackson being social. And, like, we have dance party at the house. You know, like, and we all take turns on, you know, saying what song we want she who must not be named, because if I say her name out loud, she'll start doing things.
Yes.
Because an A on my counter. We all take turns, and Jackson takes his turn, you know, to like do his, and we all dance and what, you know, it's like, it's amazing. But Teddy pulled that out of him.
I was going to say, so Teddy pulled Jackson out of his shell.
Oh, totally. Totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I love hearing that. And like you said, it's like, I mean, you never not want to have your child, but it's like, Teddy, we needed you. I love that you say that to him. Like,
so needed him. We so needed him.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So I want to ask you about inclusion before we run out of time. So I know you mentioned to me inclusion and like, you know, having it come from a pure perspective. Like, tell me about that. What did that feel like for you?
So like, there's two different environments that I think inclusion is brought up, right? So like, first, as a mom of a son with very, very high needs, if I'm in a school environment and they start talking about inclusion, it's like I want to break out in hives. Do you know what I mean? Like, my son is not, like, that's not a good environment. You're going to make him have that's not for him.
Okay.
inclusion is that type of classroom based for my son, and it's not for everyone, but just for me and his high needs.
Yeah.
And say inclusion, and I want to break out in hives. Like that's not what he wants. He wants a classroom with 2 other kids, and that's how he can try and learn some things. And like maybe out on the playground he'll have like I said, those other connections. But like if you're trying to work on, you know, things that he really needs to work on with behavior and stuff like that, and being able to have a voice and to communicate so that he's having lower behaviors and things like that, like inclusion, I can't.
Yes.
On the flip side, Teddy,
right,
he, you know, it was all about inclusion for him. And now he's in 3rd grade and he goes to the resource room for 30 minutes a day.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
Inclusion was exactly what he needed.
Right.
So you can be a mom and look at that totally different. I did for both my kids.
Right.
You know, both my kids, inclusion when we're talking about the school environment, totally different.
Right.
Now, when it comes to in the community,
yes.
When inclusion is real and pure and comes from a real place of like, I want to include you and I want it to be a way that is comfortable and best for Jackson.
Yes.
That's like, it's like a unicorn. It's like, you barely see that.
Right.
And it's hard because that inclusion doesn't happen in the places you think it's supposed to happen.
Okay.
Greg and I actually, we are very strong with our faith. Loved going to church and things like that. Jackson could not do church. He couldn't, the children's church room, like his behaviors became too high and stuff like that. And then we stopped going. And it was, we always still, you know, had a relationship with God. We pray, you know, my kids pray every night. Jack says the prayer because he has to say it the same, you know, we say it the same way every time we go to bed, you know, but then when COVID happened, it was like, oh, I get church from home. Perfect. You know what I mean? Like, I can be relaxed. I'm at home, whatever.
Right.
And then Teddy, who becomes like a Bible theologist at night, you know, was like asking me these questions, and I'm like, you're above my like, you know, if God made the world, where was he before then? I don't know. You know, like, like you're way above my pay grade. I don't know. And so it was like, oh, I think Teddy would really like going to children's church because he loves Bible stories. And like I said, he gets all the questions, and I'm like, I don't know, you know, like whatever, you know. So we had found this church that we go to in Sanford now, which is amazing. And so what Greg and I were doing is one of us would go to church with Teddy. One of us would stay home with Jackson, watch on the TV. Okay. You know, switch every week. Yeah. Who would go live and who would watch online. Yeah. We were only there for probably 3 weeks, and like doing that 3 different times. That the woman who ran the children's church, you know, that Teddy was going to and stuff, was like, you know, if you don't mind me asking, you know, why do you guys do that? And I was like, well, we have a son who is very, you know, he's very severe autism. He would not want to take part in children's church. Yeah. You know, we've had some bad experiences in the past of it feeling like it's not an environment that they wanted us to, you know, like we just had a bad experience. And so it's just like, you know, we're good with this setup now, and we're happy that we get to go at least every other week. And she was like, well, what would Jackson need? And I was like, well, he would need, you know, a trained one-on-one aide. Right. It would need his own space where it's like a living room style for him to chill for an hour.
Like quiet, not so loud. Yeah.
Well, so he's loud, so he brings his own stuff, but he wants to make his own noise. And you know, she was like, give me a few days. And I was like, okay. You know, the next week, she was like, we have someone, we'd love for you guys to try it out, bring Jackson in and see how it goes.
Okay.
So we bring I'm like, and Jackson's so mad. You know, like I do not go out, I do not go out on Sundays. Like I'm not doing this. Like he's so mad, but we're like, no, we're gonna try it. Like because I do have to change. You know, we do have to try things because Jackson's today than he was 4 days ago.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Jackson notices more and more and more and more every day.
Yeah.
And he understands what is being said around him that I think other people don't realize that or take that into account. And that is, you know, is also heartbreaking, you know, to a point to be like, he knows, you know, he knows what's going on. He knows the people around him. He knows all these things. He knows what's going on. And so anyways, we get to church and it ends up who they have there is someone who worked with Jackson back when he was at Waban.
Oh, wow.
So they're like, you know, she's going to be with us. She wants to come whenever you guys need her. They have this like whole like room, like living room area, whatever. And they're like, you know, here, have it all. There's a TV. And they're like, oh, do you want us to get like, you know, does it have to be a smart TV? Does he, you know, because Jackson knows all the things. And I'm like, wait, like, let's just see if he even like gets through it before you start like renovating this room for him.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? And so Greg and I are in church and, you know, I'm like a mental case anyways, because I'm like, he could be biting her or punching her and I don't know what's happening and we're at church and, you know, like whatever. And so like I keep getting out to look and like he's got his shoes off and he's laying on the couch in this place with his iPad, just like eating cheese puffs, you know, like just like straight chilling. Like I got it, you know, like great.
Yeah.
And I remember going back in like into church, you know, because I kept peeking out and I remember going back into church and just being like, that is what it means to say, I am an inclusive environment and however we can make this for you to feel comfortable, I want to do it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so it's not always that way. And it's not always that way with environments that you think it should be that way.
Yeah.
So that's really hard. That's really hard.
Yeah. But that's incredible that they did that for you. Like you must feel so good when that happens, right? When people take that into consideration and go the extra mile for you guys.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's the difference between a person who just says they're you know, inclusive and open and like
right, and then they don't do anything
and you know wants to help and blah blah blah, and then like, okay, you know what? Okay,
right, but then they don't set it up for Jackson. They're not thinking of him as an individual.
Right.
Wow. So are you still going to church there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing. And Jackson will go every week.
Yeah, I mean, he still is like, you know, like when you walk out the door, they're like, nah, you know, like. He'll get like, you know, he'll see us start like packing his, you know, snacks and stuff. And he's like, this again, you know, but like get him in there, you know, he's happy. Yeah.
That's amazing. Well, I'm so glad you guys are able to go back to church and, you know, do what you love. And it's also helping Jackson too. That's incredible.
It's been great for me and my mental health too, because I never had, like Greg and I were not having time together. So like church now a time where him and I have time together every week.
Like adult time. Yeah.
Like I know that is at least an hour that Teddy is not asking for a snack and Jackson is not telling us to download some new app or what, you know, like I know I have that time that like it can be us, you know, and for me to even have that time where it's like, okay, they're safe. I'm not at work. I'm not, you know, it's just whatever. And so it's been great. It's been great.
That's amazing. No,
it's so important to find those things.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I feel like church is extra special because you're like, you know, getting a special message, you know, just for you. You're spending time with your husband. You guys are doing it together and your kids are safe and learning as well. I think that's like a win-win for the whole entire family.
Yeah. It's been so great for me for us to be back at church and stuff like that. So yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Now, I know you went back to school and you became a psychologist, right?
Well, I'm not a psychologist, but I went to school for psychology.
For psychology. Okay.
So
Tell me a little bit about that. And like, I mean, where do you see yourself 5 to 10 years from now? Like, what do you have planned?
So I was a case manager and doing social work for adults with autism and other intellectual disabilities. And I loved that job. I worked with an amazing staff, amazing people. But my heart is really in early intervention. My heart is in younger kids.
Yes.
So next week I'll be starting at Child Development Services. So I'll be IEP case manager for Child Development Services.
Amazing. So, next week you start?
Next week I start.
Oh my God. Yeah, I can totally see you doing that. That's definitely where your heart is at. Oh, that's so exciting.
Like I said, I loved the job that I was just in, but that's where I've gone with that. And, I keep playing around. I thought I would go back and get my master's in clinical mental health therapy.
Okay.
And that may be still what I do, but I think with this, it's kind of changed my outlook a little bit. And so, maybe I would still keep pursuing and going deeper into early intervention things and stuff like that. So, we'll see. I'm not sure yet, but still definitely in this field. So
amazing. And how old are your boys now?
Jackson is going to be 13.
Oh my God. We are so old. That's so
old. I hate it. It's crazy. So yes, Jackson will be 13 in December. Teddy is 9.
Okay.
And
they're
so
thriving. They're happy.
Yes. It's getting weird in here. So being weird, just weird. So,
oh God, you're hilarious.
Yeah.
Well, Christa, thank you so much for coming on and talking about all of this. I mean, if you can give any advice to moms out there that might be, questioning things when their baby is young, or, what would you say to them? Like, what's the most important thing you can do?
I would say the number one thing I would tell a mom in general is if you have any doubts about anything, say them. Say them to as many people until someone listens to you, because you're that child's advocate at that age. Yeah. You're their advocate, and to not be scared about a diagnosis of any kind of that nature. I can't tell. I mean, just to not be nervous about a developmental delay, label. Okay. Because the label is what gets them the services they need.
Yes.
That's what paves the way to be like, okay, we need to make sure they have all of these things. And being afraid of that terminology or anything like that, it can hinder how fast you get those services and stuff. Okay. And I think for any mom is to give yourself a break. Do you know what I mean? Give yourself grace for sure. Yeah. Because I think we're all doing our best that we can to survive. Absolutely. And keep her happy and safe and go from there. So.
Yeah. That's amazing. Thank you. That is some really good advice. And I can't wait to share that. So thank you again for spending this hour with me. I really appreciate it.
That was awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, it was so nice to see your face. Hopefully I'll see you again soon.
Yeah, I know. You too.
All right. I'll talk to you soon, Christa. Thank you again.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Empowerhood is brought to you by Flourish Everyday Coaching. Check them out in the link below. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. If you could take 60 seconds of your time and leave us an Apple review, this helps share the news about this podcast and help women all over the world. If you want to see the video version of this podcast, you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there. Thank you so much, and we'll see you at the next episode.